Hi, my name is Alexa Shavy, and I'm an academic advisor in the Class Advising Center and also part of our pre-professional team. Today, we're going to be talking about how to get involved with extracurricular activities. And this semester, the Class Advising Center has done a full workshop series called the Getting Started Workshops. Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3 talked about how to kind of get started with preparing your application for professional school. We had a session about clinical experiences and another session about academics. So if you missed those, I encourage you to go back and watch the recordings. And today we'll be talking about extracurricular activities, which includes getting involved in on-campus and off-campus activities, and also how to make sure that these activities that you're getting involved with align with your personal and your career goals. Extracurriculars are the things that are going to help make your application stand out. We know that to have a competitive professional school application, you need to have a strong GPA, you have to have a variety of clinical experiences that involve patient care and shadowing. But extracurriculars are really the things that you get involved with because of what you are interested in. So it's really a way to kind of show who you are and the uniqueness of your application. So we encourage you to keep that in mind as you're selecting activities to be involved with. The visual that we have on screen can kind of help you start to think about maybe the different buckets that extracurriculars can fall into. As I mentioned, we did a whole session on clinical experiences, really dove into that. So if you missed that, I encourage you to go back and watch that recording. But we'll be talking a little bit more about each of these individual areas in the following slides. Service experience is a must for your professional school application. Healthcare is a service industry, and it's important that you show that you are willing to give back to your community. And the best way to do that is to have a long-term experiences on your application that really show that that is a genuine part of who you are. On the screen there, we have a couple examples of some activities that we have had previous students participate in. There's a number of crisis hotlines that are out there. Some local ones are the Trevor Project, which works with the LGBTQ community. There's a global organization called Listening Ears, where you can be trained to be a listener and be there to talk to individuals who might be going through a crisis. Those are maybe some more of the intense activities that you can be involved in. There's also ways to show what maybe social justice causes that you're passionate about, like secure housing, ways to work with the unsheltered community. A couple of examples of places in the Grand Rapids area would be Mel Trotter, Degage Ministries, Habitat for Humanity. Those are all organizations that work to have secure housing for families and for individuals. Working with food security is another one. We have a number of, in like our Heartside District in Grand Rapids, a number of organizations that help provide meals to the unhoused community. That might be through Degage. There's community food clubs where families can come and shop for groceries. There's also places that do food packing, like Meals on Wheels, deliver food to homebound senior citizens, and Kids Food Basket. So packaging up lunches for kids who need food in our local schools. There's also ways to get involved. If you're thinking, maybe you were an athlete in high school and that's something that you want to continue to be involved with, you could even volunteer as a coach for, say, the YMCA or for any of the youth activities in the area or through the K-12 school districts. There's also after-school programs like the Boys and Girls Club, where you can go and spend some time with kids. Could be with more of like a mentoring role, but also could be serving as like a tutor and helping with work. Also, fundraising work is important. So if you do philanthropy work through maybe a fraternity or sorority, or any type of fundraising that you do for a cause that you're really passionate about, those are also activities that can be showing up on your application. So again, just to emphasize, it's important to pick activities that are meaningful to you, because these activities are how you're going to show who you are and what's important to you. So think about the communities that you're involved in, think about the identities that you have, and think about how you can kind of show who you are through those activities. Another area we want to talk about is how to develop cultural awareness. And some examples on screen there. Keep in mind that cultural awareness and cultural humility are two of the competencies that the AAMC indicates are valued from professional schools. And again, we talked a little bit more about what the competencies are in our first workshop. Study abroad is one that probably comes to mind for a lot. If you're thinking about going on a study abroad program, could be a semester long, could be a faculty led, really a great way to kind of immerse yourself in another country and learn about a culture that is different than yours. And what a better way to do that than traveling there and living there for an extended amount of time. If you are early in the process of planning a study abroad, we encourage you to go to the study abroad office over in Lake Ontario, and they have weekly first step meetings, which is a great way to learn more about how to start planning, where you might go, cost for study abroad, how to get academic credit, kind of all the ins and outs of that. Alternative breaks are another pretty accessible way to get involved and build cultural awareness. If you're not familiar, alternative breaks it's a student organization at Grand Valley, and during winter break and summer break, spring break, they send a group of Grand Valley students to work in an area, volunteer for a week, and it's usually around a specific social justice issue. So that's a great way that you can get involved. Those applications for spring break and winter break are usually due at the end of November. We also will see students who maybe get involved with things outside of Grand Valley. So it could be a trip maybe through like a faith-based trip or a service trip. Urban plunges are another one. So sometimes organizations might have like a weekend that you can spend kind of at their facility, maybe learning more about what it's like to be unhoused in a particular city and what that experience is like. But I also want to make sure that I'm pointing out developing cultural awareness and cultural humility does not require a flight somewhere. It doesn't require a passport. There are lots of things you can do and get involved with that show how you're developing these competencies. One example would be in the Grand Rapids area. Treetops Collective is a local organization that works with refugees. So that's another great way that you can help people who are maybe resettling to the Grand Rapids area, and you can kind of be there as a support for them during that process. Research and intellectual curiosity is sort of a third extracurricular area. I think it's important to note that intellectual curiosity can come in a variety of ways and shapes and disciplines. Just because you're going on to a healthcare program for a professional school doesn't require that you have a science research background. You can be involved with research in the social sciences, in the humanities, and the arts. It can really be from any discipline. It's all about demonstrating that you are curious about the world around you, and you're familiar with what the steps are that are involved with how to test a hypothesis, how to build a study, making sure that you understand that process. Sometimes these experiences are built into a classroom, like our honors, our senior projects. Senior projects are a great way to have an independent study or maybe research a topic of interest. There are also some courses like our cell molecular biology 156, our discovering cell biology lab, or some of the more advanced courses like our CMB 440, which is research exploration in Drosophila genomics. So you can have some research that's just embedded in a classroom. There's also ways to pursue research outside of the classroom. A lot of faculty at Grand Valley will be doing independent research and are needing students to kind of train and be a part of their research lab. And so a great way to kind of see what's going on in the departments and with faculty is one, just ask, reach out, talk to faculty that you've had in class before, go on the department websites and see what kind of research they might be involved in. We also have a really great resource at Grand Valley. Our Office of Undergrad Research exists to connect students to research opportunities, whether that is through funding and connecting them to faculty at Grand Valley, or perhaps it's connecting them off campus. We're pretty fortunate that we live in an area where Van Andel Institute is state-of-the-art research facility, and they're located in downtown Grand Rapids. So it could be that you're doing research maybe off campus, either through a hospital, maybe doing clinical research, or maybe at a research institution. So there's lots of varieties of ways to get involved with research. If you're kind of at a loss on how to get started, I highly recommend connecting with the Office of Undergrad Research. They can meet with you individually. They also have ongoing workshops throughout every semester to kind of help get you started. Educating others is another competency that can kind of capture a lot of activities that we see our pre-professional students getting involved in. Whether you are a tutor at Grand Valley, or if you're a tutor, say, through a K-12 program, or maybe a teaching assistant in a classroom, all of these connect back to how do you help take complex information and make it understandable. And this is a skill that's going to be transferable for all healthcare professions. If you're a physician and you have a deeper understanding of, say, the physiology of the human body and need to be able to explain that to a patient, how do you do so in a way that makes sense for them, makes sense for them to understand your treatment plan? So on screen there, we have a couple examples of some ways that students have gotten involved with tutoring and other activities while at Grand Valley. I think it probably goes without saying, but getting involved with student organizations is another great way to get involved. There's a variety of student organizations out there. Could be academic and professional clubs like our pre-med club, our pre-dental club, women in science and medicine club. There's a lot of organizations that are out there to support your academic interests and your career plans. But there's also clubs that are out there to kind of help capture what other interests you might have. If you're looking for volunteering, there are service organizations like the Red Cross Club or Helping Hands Club that really exist just to help build maybe awareness about a certain social issue, or to help maybe raise funds or help with volunteering in the community pertaining to that social issue. There's also clubs pertaining to individual identities that students might have, those who might be looking for communities through like our Greek system or our honors clubs. There's really there's something out there for everyone. There's also ways that you can go about starting clubs. So if you are really passionate about something and you don't see a club that really captures that interest, you can absolutely organize a group of students and develop a club. Social justice and advocacy is another way that you can get involved and kind of build your application. So social justice and advocacy is one of those areas where applicants are working to advancing the rights, privileges, and opportunities, whether it be from an individual person or for a group of people, or maybe it is a particular cause. It's not meant to be connected to, say, a political candidate or a certain political party. Some examples of this could be helping to register people to vote, could be climate activism, could be advocating for civil rights. We see a lot of students who do some great work with decreasing health inequities. So whatever cause it is, It's showing that you're willing to go out there and really be involved in something that you are passionate about. At Grand Valley, we have our social justice centers, the Women and Gender Equity Center, the LGBT Resource Center, Office of Multicultural Affairs, Veteran Resource Center, Interfaith Institute. These are offices that do regular programming, whether it be having, say, a lecturer come into campus, or maybe programming that they do where they need a group of students that you can get involved with different activities. As we're coming right out of an election season, we saw a lot of our civic engagement office getting involved with voter registration, encouraging democratic participation. So those are a few places that you can get involved on campus. There's also student organizations like our Partners in Health, Engage team. They are focused on kind of raising awareness and decreasing health inequities in our community. So they're great, another organization to get involved with. We've also had students get involved with, say, councils or boards for nonprofits in the area, or some other, different neighborhood associations where you can show how you're sort of active in the community. And sometimes those organizations need leadership. And that's a great place for you to help kind of make sure that your voice is heard. Publications, awards, and honors is often an area that's overlooked on an application. I think if we just want to emphasize that all activities that you're involved in, whether it's things where you're involved with a certain number of hours per week, or if there are scholarships that you earn based on your hard work or based on academic awards, those are important things to put on your application too. So anything that really shows that you've been acknowledged for your hard work, it's important to kind of keep a list of that on your resume or however you're tracking your involvements, and make sure that these come on your application too. Professional schools aren't going to know if you've made the dean's list or if you have a scholarship unless you tell them. Few other areas that often get skipped on an application are employment, particularly if it's not healthcare employment. I can't tell you how many students I have met with who maybe held a job on campus during their first year. Maybe they were working in the dining halls, or maybe they were working, say, on a front desk in an office, and it had nothing to do with their career plans. But if they don't put it on the application, it does leave a big gap in experience. If you worked 15 hours a week during your first year and you maintained a really strong GPA, that looks completely different if you got a 4.0 GPA and professional schools didn't know that you were carrying a job at the same time. So it's really important to make sure that you're listing all involvements out of the classroom, keeping track of those hours, keeping track of those dates of involvement. And usually there's transferable skills that you can identify from any employment. Can't tell you how many students that I know have maybe mowed lawns in the summer, and they need to, they're kind of balancing their own business. So they need to make sure that they're following through on their commitments, that they're managing their time. There's customer service skills involved. That can be said for a lot of those entry-level positions that college students, where they might be working. So it's important to make sure that you don't lose those on the application. Also, hobbies is another thing that you can put on the application. Usually say don't overdo it with hobbies, but it might be useful to maybe have a singular box on the application where you're talking about things you do for fun, things that help you manage your stress, or ways that you show, your creativity. I'll have students put in here a variety of things. Maybe they are artistic, maybe they paint, maybe they take pictures, or maybe they run marathons, maybe they weight lift. Whatever it is, this is definitely a way that you can kind of show your unique self. Lastly, I want to say it's also great to be creative and kind of show some of those extracurriculars that you might be involved with that aren't maybe as organized as, say, a volunteer commitment through a nonprofit, or as formal as a membership through a student organization. If you have something that you are passionate about and you see a need in your community and you're able to find a way to serve that need, these are the things that professional schools love to see on an application. A couple examples that I've seen over the years. I had an applicant a couple years ago who would make blankets. Her and her friend would make blankets, and they would bring them down to the unhoused community downtown, and they would hand them out to people who needed blankets during the cold months. I've also had a student who loved to cook, and during the pandemic, she started doing a cooking blog and ended up connecting with other bloggers, and they created a cookbook to help raise funds for nonprofits who focused on food insecurity. Another applicant had a family member who had special needs and felt like there weren't a lot of involvements in his community for his sibling to get involved with. So he started a football league. These are all great examples of somebody seeing something that they feel is important, seeing a need in their community, and finding a way to make that happen. And these aren't things that have to be overly time consuming. These can be really small things, but they're really meaningful, and it's important that they show up on your application. Lastly, I just want to make sure we're underscoring the importance of keeping track of your involvements out of the classroom, but you also need to make sure that you're not keeping track of these activities in, say, a list, like a checklist. You're not looking for, I have been involved with a volunteer organization. Check, done with that. I got involved with research. Check, done with that. It all goes back to those competencies that we talked about in that first workshop. For example, leadership, for instance, is something that you're not going to go seek out, find it, check it off the box. Leadership is something that you're going to develop over time. It might be from a variety of extracurricular activities that you hold that really show that you're able to manage leadership or work successfully in a team. So again, you want to find how those professional competencies are showing up in the way that you involve yourself in extracurricular activities. Kind of unrelated to extracurriculars, but while we're starting to wrap up the workshop, I want to make sure that we're also giving a moment to talk about parallel planning. The way that you build a strong application for professional school is also going to help you in the future if your plans change. So maybe today, as you're thinking about your career goals, and as you're going through this workshop, maybe you're planning on becoming a veterinarian. Maybe you're planning on becoming a dentist, but maybe in the future you decide, I don't want to pursue that anymore, whether it be for maybe changing interests, maybe it's with academic fit, whatever it is, plans can change. And we want to make sure that all applicants are also thinking about what else can you do if you're not able to get into, if you don't continue on the path that you're on right now. And parallel planning is what we call that. We want every student, regardless of how competitive their application is, we want everybody to have a parallel plan in mind. And all the activities that you're involved with can really help. They can help you pivot in the future if you find yourself in that position. Our Career Center is also great at helping students plan out parallel plans. Our Career Center has assessments that you can take. You can take Pathway U. It can kind of point directions to what other careers might be a good fit for you. There's also resources on their website that you can kind of review at your leisure. You can also do individual appointments and meet with a career counselor to talk about what are your interests, and then how can those maybe translate into other career fields. So lastly, last slide here, as we kind of wrap up, and as we are finishing up our Getting Started workshop series for the semester, we want to make sure that as you're taking this information in, you're working with our office to kind of help put that into action. So we call that, creating a plan, an individualized plan, a degree plan, not just including the classes that you need to complete your degree, but also keeping track of what those experiences are: healthcare experience, networking experiences, extracurricular experiences, all the things that you need to build an application. So we encourage you to come visit our office. Um, Ideally, doing a scheduled appointment would be the best way to have enough time to meet with an advisor and create a plan. All first year students who are new to Grand Valley, whether they're transfer or incoming students from high school, they do have to meet with an advisor before they can register for their second year. So we encourage you to schedule an appointment. That can be in person, it can be through Zoom. Our office also has drop-ins. However, I just want to point out that these hours can change each semester. So it's important to look on our website for the most accurate information for drop-in hours. And with that, I'd just like to say thank you so much for joining us for our workshop today, and we look forward to working with you. Have a good one.